All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Global Reality with me, your host, Josh Reeves. This is the Wednesday, September the 28th, 2016 edition of the show. We thank you very much for joining us, being here with us for another edition of the broadcast. We're going to get into some news and various topics of discussion, and then we're going to do a little book reading tonight. I said we were going to do some yesterday, but we didn't get around to it. Today we're going to do it. But there is going to be a slight little change and variation. I first started doing these book readings. I'll tell you the reason. It's funny looking back. This is our 9-year anniversary week, so I've kind of been, and I don't do that very often, but I sometimes do it around special momentous events. I mean, honestly, it really is a huge accomplishment for us to have made it this far, and a real testament to following what you are supposed to be doing and dedicating yourself to that. And I think that's the only way that you have success at anything, no matter what it is just to never stop doing it. And eventually the tide will turn, but you just have to keep rolling and hopefully making it through it till the tide does turn. That's the big thing. But, I've been kind of looking back, and I remember when I first started doing the book reading thing, it was very early. It was within a year. I think I can't remember exactly what the first book I read on air was. I think it was Finding of the Third Eye. That's exactly what it was. It was Finding of the Third Eye, which was a book that came to me in my early 20s when I was kind of first starting my journey into whatever you want to call it, enlightenment, illumination, awakening, whatever it may be. And a lot of people are at this stage now. It's funny. I meet a lot of people like this, and it's because of the internet, because information stuff's a lot widely more distributed, and this stuff's a lot more talked about and accepted now than it used to be. But I meet a lot of people, talk to a lot of people, and see a lot of stuff online where a lot of people are sort of into the whole, I don't know what you want to call it, the self-induced spiritual journey quest, using psychedelic drugs, acid, mescaline, mushrooms, peyote, MDMA, DMT, whatever it may be. And it's way bigger now than it ever used to be. And it's funny because people are sort of coming to stuff the opposite way of how I came into it. I came into all that stuff, through all that stuff in like my late teens and early 20s and stuff. And learned everything I needed to learn from it, and then moved on. And I see the kind of reverse of that happening, whereas I kind of got into this stuff through, when I was very young, I got into this stuff because I remember I was, gosh, it had to have been third grade. I remember my dad had back surgery. I'll never forget I can remember going to the hospital to see him when he had back surgery. And I had 2 books with me I got at the library that day, and one was on UFOs and one was on the Bermuda Triangle. I was just shocked, that they had these books. And these books were like, they weren't talking about this stuff. So what was interesting, this would be in a public school, public school library in the early 80s. But these books, what intrigued me about these books, the fact that they were in a school library, was that they weren't presenting the information like it was BS. I mean, I remember this UFO book, and I've seen the picture recently. I've seen it. It's online and stuff. It's a famous picture. I don't know what the name of it is. It's probably from the 60s or something. And you just kind of see this black. It's like a black outline with the like antenna thing kind of sticking up on it or something. I think it had that on the cover, but they were talking about they were showing, it was just a book of like pictures of unidentified flying objects that people had taken. It was just like a collection of it, and it said this one was taken here, and I was fascinated by it because it didn't. It wasn't presented like it was BS. It was presented like, this is a legitimate thing here. So much so it's legitimate that we're going to put it in, elementary school kids' library, along with, there was one on the Bermuda Triangle too that I got, and none of the teachers ever thought it was anything odd about it. I don't think you'd get away with that now. So I that led me, and I just became fascinated with it. I saw this. I remember there's this UFO. It's very hard to find. It's probably on YouTube. It's very hard to find. It was a UFO documentary that HBO made. And this was in the early days of, like, I remember MTV hadn't been out very long. But I was pretty lucky when I was young. I mean, if I was watching something with my parents, they would, like if some nudity came on, or some shit, they did the old classic, hide your eyes, thing. But I was pretty lucky because they didn't really put too many restraints on, what I watched, or I don't think they really gave a shit, honestly, as long as I wasn't fucking with them, really. But I remember watching this, I'll never forget watching this UFO thing, and I think it had Linda Moulton Howe on it or something. And I think originally she was supposed to make some big revelation. They cut it. I think they were supposed to show like actual, I don't know what it was, but they ended up cutting it out or something. But anyway, I remember it had all this freaky synthesizer music and these, like, it was just really creepy, like weird synthesizer sounds and different pictures. And I don't know what, well, I do know now. Now I know why, but at the time I didn't know why, that it initiated a absolute fight or flight fear response in me. And to feel that, and we've all felt that at different times in our life, but at such an early age and not know why, like it was ingrained in me. Like it literally, something like inside of me, and of course I believe it to be other experiences, stuff. It was my subconscious mind reacting to it and affecting my conscious mind, making me feel scared because it was triggering things in my subconscious mind that I had experienced that was repressed in my memory, or possibly in genetic memory as well. So that was when I was just like, and then I started finding out about how when I was born with a clubfoot, and my dad's best friend's father like sponsored me with the Scottish Rite Hospital in Dallas, and I had free medical till I was 18. And they took care of my surgery, and I was able to walk and stuff. And I had a strange experience while I was in the surgery when I was 6. And I know people, a lot of people go under anesthesia and stuff and have out-of-body experiences and things of that nature. I was supposed to talk about that. I'll make a mental note. Somebody asked me recently to talk about out-of-body experiences and astral travel, and I forgot to do that. So I'll get around to talking about that for the listener who requested that at some point. So I'm aware that oftentimes a lot of people have surgery and stuff, or they have out-of-body experiences, but there was something, I've never been able to put my finger on it, but there was something that happened. Really what they did was they like broke all the bones in my foot and reconstructed my foot like from scratch, essentially. But there was something, I don't know. There was something that happened during that surgery that made my subconscious mind somehow relate that to aliens, extraterrestrials. And I had this recurring dream for years and years about me and my dad sitting on the back porch at the house where I was when I got into reading those books and saw that HBO thing and stuff. And kept having this recurring dream for a long time of me and my dad standing on the back porch and pointing up at these lights and stuff, until one day I realized that wasn't a fucking dream, that I remembered it actually did happen. And I could never, and I was like, why did my brain try to suppress that? Why did my brain try to downplay that? Because it had me thinking, because I was having dreams and remembering it. And I would wake up and I would, like, for a while, I convinced myself that I just dreamed that. But it actually happened. Me and my dad actually did. It was a Saturday night. I'll never forget it. I was about 9 or 10. And, yeah, we were standing out there, and it was, one was white, one was red, and they were flying around in a circle around each other. And there's always like a bright flash, and then that's all I remember after that. I believe that was some kind of, that was some kind of experience as well. And then I have a similar dream that takes place at my great-grandmother's house in East Texas that's like that I have almost started to think might have actually happened as well and not been a dream. But it just was wiped out of the conscious memory or whatever. So something, again, when I was into this surgery, and so I later found out, the Scottish Rite Hospital, I didn't know when I was a kid. I was 6 years old. I didn't know what that was. Just thought it was the name of it, But later on, growing up, finding out that it was that my father's friend that sponsored me was a Freemason and all this stuff. And so I just, like, as I grew up, I just knew there was some kind of gut feeling. That's all I can describe it as. I just knew there was some kind of a relationship between what I experienced and between Freemasons and between extraterrestrials, and I didn't know what it was. And I can remember when my first experience, I've talked about this on interviews and stuff I've done before, but the first time ever getting on the internet, I can remember the first time ever getting on the internet. I remember, I remember somebody telling me, "Oh, you can look up anything. You search, you can find anything. You just put words together and type them in, and it'll find, stuff you're looking for." So I put Freemasons and aliens in, and even though it was the early days of the internet, there was already all kinds of information, and everything I was reading and finding was just like, oh my God. You weren't just whistling Dixie on that one, buddy. There's something to this. And I remember saying it to a guy I worked with one time, and and it's funny because I've looked at various different sources, and I've done a lot of research, and I've never heard anybody say this. And it was probably just bullshit, but even if it wasn't or wasn't, at the time when it was said to be, it was huge, and it stuck with me. And I always looked, and I was like, man, I've never seen anything like remotely says that the Freemasons do it. Maybe they do, for all we know. Maybe they really do, but I kind of think I'm 50-50 on it. I kind of think it was probably bullshit, and then the other 50% of me says maybe it is true, and maybe that's why you haven't heard about it, because that is what they actually do. But the person that told me, I have to say his dad was, I worked for this guy, and I used to get calls. I'd answer the phone, and his parents owned the place, and he was the manager, and people would call him and be like, "Oh yes, I was calling to, verify Mr. So-and-so's dinner with, George Bush Sr. this week." This dude was going out and having, dinner with Poppy. Okay, so the guy that told me this, that's why I'm saying, 50-50 on it. Could have been bullshit, but maybe it was true. He told me, because I told him the thing about the Freemasons and my foot and all that, and he said, yeah. He said, "Have you heard what they do when you finally make it to the highest degree or whatever, the highest level? Have you heard what the final thing is?" I'm like, no, what is it? He's like, "Well, they bring you in, they bring you into a room after it's all said and done, and they bring out a Bible, and they ask you to spit on the Bible, and whether you do it or you don't, depends upon the outcome you get." So I'm like, okay, so what happens? He's like, "Well, if you spit on it, they ask you to spit on, they say, congratulations. You're obviously able to follow instructions, do what you're told. come into this room. You're the highest level. You're one of us now. You're the highest level Mason there is, or whatever. Or I can't remember which way it is. Maybe it's if you don't spit on it. Okay, maybe they tell him to spit on it, he doesn't spit on it. That's what it is. He doesn't spit on it. They say, congratulations, you didn't spit on it. You're a high level Mason. Enter this room. You're part of the club. The guy then, if a guy does spit on it, they say, congratulations, you're now a Mason. You're at the highest level. Come into this room to meet the aliens. That's what this guy told me. I've never heard that, never said that. I've never heard it said anywhere else. Again, it could be bullshit. Take it with a grain of salt. But at the time in which it was said to me, it resonated strongly, and it triggered what I had said to him about the Masons and aliens in my foot. He just immediately, and he didn't say it. I mean, he just immediately was like, "Well, let me tell you this," So that's one of these things where I, you look back on how you got into stuff, and I came about it through that way, and that led me into researching and finding out about the Kennedy assassination, because I lived and grew up in the Dallas area my whole entire life, ladies and gentlemen. And it wasn't until I was like 14 or 15 years old that I even knew that about the Kennedy assassination. People just flat didn't talk about it. People from my grandparents' generation, people like, my dad's generation, they just didn't, it wasn't polite to talk about it. This is what a lot of old folks have now told me. I've, tried to get as much out of people who were there while they were still alive. And that's what everybody consistently always said, is that after it happened, especially in Dallas, there was a lot of shame. There was a lot of a cloud of shame hanging over it, because this was the city where the president was killed. Forget how it was done and who did it and why and all the rest of that. Nobody was concerned about that here in Dallas, because it was such a cloud of shame. And I mean, you think people from Texas and stuff are denigrated now after Bush. My goodness, imagine that back then. And so I remember asking my grandmother about it, and she, showed me actual newspapers from the day. And I started reading the newspaper clippings, and there was dates and time. There was just discrepancies. There was things that were in that paper when it happened that were not reported the same way in the current books and whatnot that I was reading on the subject. And that was, combined with all the other stuff I'd already experienced and been into, that set me off, and I read Jim Marr's Crossfire book not too long after that, saw the JFK movie. I was, so then I was, 15, 16 years old, and I was starting to get into music and bands and playing guitar and all that stuff, chasing chicks. So that stuff kind of went down on the wayside for me for a little while. For a couple of years, while I was, learning how to play guitar and starting my first band and being in the garage, writing songs and going out and playing gigs. And I started playing in bands and playing at big time clubs, the clubs where I had just gone and seen like Nirvana and Weezer and all these big, big bands at the time in the 90s. The year before, and here I am a year later. I'm not even fucking old enough to drink. I'm not even old enough to get in these clubs yet, and here I am. I've got a band together, and I'm playing, because it's just like this stuff, man. When I set my mind to doing something, I do it. It might take me a while to do it, but God damn it, I'm going to do it. Just like for years I said I was going to make a Spellcasters film. Yeah, it took the years for it to come around, but I finally got it made, got it done. So then in my late teens, early 20s. I started getting into, this is where I haven't lost my train of thought, don't worry. I know exactly where I'm going with all this from the very beginning of the show. That's when I got into sort of the psychedelic and the spiritual end of it. And I notice people are kind of going backwards from that now, where people are finding out about the conspiracy stuff and all that, and then that's leading them into having these psychedelic experiences, and a lot of people are into that stuff now. It's going to South America and doing the ayahuasca thing and all that stuff. It's interesting to see that people are kind of, are going backwards from that. But I had my experiences, and then once I experienced that, then that's what then again led me back to the research and it led me back to this path of doing this and talking about this stuff. And damn it, I didn't lose my train of thought, but I did. I've lost what I may remember. I have to remember what my actual point was. Bringing up the psychedelic thing. But it's just kind of interesting to see how popular that is now, where it was really, way counterculture 10, 15 years ago, and it's become a lot more mainstream now, and a lot more people are having these experiences and whatnot. These two, I can't even remember what my point was of why I was bringing. There was a point why I was bringing that up. Regardless of that, we've got news to get into. To do some reading. I was going to read this book, the Father Crespi book I told you about. I was going to read that. I started doing like a pre-read thing of that. It's not a good book for reading. I'm sorry I said I was going to read it, and I hate to back out, but I do reserve the right to do that. Look, bottom line is not all books are made to be read aloud. I mean, if there were, I actually know where I was going with all this now, because I knew if I started talking about this, it would bring me back. Not all these books are intended to be read on air. I started going back and I was talking about the first books that I ever read on air. That's what I began with tonight. Now we're back on track. See, and the Finding of the Third Eye. That was the book that in my early 20s, when I was on that spiritual path, that's what set me on the journey. So that was the first book I read, and I felt like I had a lot to add to that. But the reason I started reading these books in the first place it was kind of around, I think, that's exactly what it was. It was around the 2008 election, the first time when Obama got elected the first term. And the same thing was going on that's going on now. All the news, I was still doing news. I was doing news and stuff then. So all the news and everything was revolving around that. Same as I am now. I didn't want to get into all that. And that's what every other show, on the network and stuff I was on, everybody else was just talking about that stuff incessantly. So as a protest, this is why I originally started reading books on the air. It was a protest. It was just to say, you know what? Fuck it. I'm not going to talk about this shit. If it's all there is to talk about, then I'm just flat not going to talk about it. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get a fucking book and I'm going to read that shit on air, and I'm going to sit there and watch the stream listener numbers just drop. And actually quite the opposite happened. Instead of people dropping off, more people started tuning in. Because it wasn't the same old shit, And that Finding a Third Eye book reading, it's the original one. It's really good. It's still out there. But I did a later reading of it as well that was good, because I had learned, a lot in between those times. But that's a great book to get to start people out on, especially if they're newbies. I think if every kid was given that book by the age of 13, we'd live in a different world in 10 years. But, all the book reading thing really just started out as a way it was really just filler. It was a way to fill up showtime without having to discuss all the droll and BS that everybody else was incessantly chatting about. And, here we are celebrating our 9-year anniversary, and nothing's changed. The same old shit. There's not as much to talk about because everything's focusing on that. So anyway, I was going to read this Father Crespi book, and it's all one of those books that's all written in like third person narrative. Like, me and Joe Bob went down at 8:45 p.m. to see if we could go, and I just don't want to sit there and read dialogue. I was reading through it, and I'm like, it's just too much minutia. Taking the back roads when you should be taking the goddamn expressway. You know what I'm saying? That kind of thing. So after reading through it, I'm sorry. You can read it on your own. It's fascinating stuff. But not all things are intended. Sometimes I do that, and I try to minimize, because there has been times when I've started to read a book on air, and I've said, okay, I'll read this. And I start to read it, and it's just, it's fine. If you're just reading it to yourself and you're ingesting it, it's fine. But I would seriously rather not waste my breath and your time reading some crap, So I that's why I don't. People say, why don't you do more book reviews? Well, it's just like why I don't do more interviews. I mean, there's only so many people you can interview, and there's only so many books that are even worthwhile. I wish there were more. If there were more that were worthwhile to read, I'd read them. But unfortunately, there isn't. So I've got another one lined up. This is a pretty big honking piece of work. By the way, there's no video show today. There won't be video shows every day. Really, the main reason is it takes way too much time and resources and keeps the computer bogged down for way too many hours to do it every single day. So we're only going to be doing it, not every single day, but a lot. And we'll have some more additional shows and different stuff up on the YouTube channel and in the archives and stuff as well. So we're going to read Albert Mackey's History of Freemasonry, not Albert Mackey's Encyclopedia of Freemasonry, not to be confused with that. Different book. This is Albert Mackey's Encyclopedia. No, I'm sorry. It's not his encyclopedia. This is the History of Freemasonry by Albert Gallatin Mackey, not the encyclopedia. So I'm not going to sit here and read the Encyclopedia of Terms of Freemasonry, which some people have done, but I'm not going to do that. This is actually the History of Freemasonry. Chapter 1 is Prehistoric Masonry. Scanning through that, it seems like it's a big, heavy tome. It's a big, heavy read. I may reserve the right to start reading this one and then go and bail out, just to let you know. But I've got other things lined up to read. So we'll have something in there. And we've got news and all that tonight as well. There was a woman who's left several messages on my YouTube videos for a long time asking me to read the book, The Urantia, or the Urantia Papers. At first I was going to say to this woman, well, hey, you know what? I tell you what, throw me a big fucking donation, and I'll read whatever the fuck you want. I'll get up here and read fucking Winnie the Pooh if you want me to do, whatever. Throw me $400 or $500. I'll read the fucking, but no, I was going to say that, but nah, I'm not going to read that fucking. Number one. Okay. Let's go through why I am not going to read the motherfucking Urantia book. Okay? I'm not going to read it. Not going to do it. I'm sorry. Number one, this is number. There are a lot of reasons, and we'll get into those. But there's number one reason why I will not read that book. It's 2,100 pages long. Do you have any fucking idea how long that would take to read doing shows? I would have to clear my schedule for the next year and a half to read all of that, maybe longer. I mean, I remember we did Lost Book of Inky. That took like 9 months. It took a long fucking time. I mean, this Albert Mackey book's like 600 pages, man. 500-600 pages. That's, 2,100 fucking pages? No, thanks. And that's one reason, but now let me get into the deeper reasons, but that's really the main reason. It's too goddamn long. It's too fucking long. But on top of that, look, have you even been paying attention? Really? See, this is what disappoints me, because people leave comments like this, and then it's just like, have you even paid attention to my shows? Have you watched my film, The Spellcasters? I mean, maybe you just haven't looked into this, but maybe you need to look a little deeper into this Urantia thing, because it's basically interchangeable with Scientology. But it really is. I mean, it's negligible differences between it. It's very close to Scientology. It's another one of these, kind of namby-pamby, new agey, light being, angelic ascension things, like I was talking about with William Henry last night. It's, but he's, that it's people, the Gnostics. It's what it is. It's a Gnostic text, and I think William Henry considered himself a Gnostic, and if you're into that, hey, more power to you. But to me, it just researching it, it seems to fall under categories, and probably is in many ways seems highly related to Scientology. But let me tell you, it's number one. Again, it's one of what they call channeled book, a channeled information, and I'm 50-50 on channeled books. I got to tell you, because really, honestly, isn't everything channeled? Isn't that a negligible distinction to call something channeled? Because who is the one that is declaring these works to be channeled? The person doing the channeling or someone else? I mean, I can listen to music. I can listen to songs. Songs are channeled. Ask any songwriter. A lot of songwriters will tell you that, and this has happened to me as well. They'll tell you that they don't know where that came from. It just came through them and out onto the page. Right? A lot of writers will tell you that. That's what I'm saying. I think everything's channeled. I think every writing, all of it's channeled. It all comes down from an energy from a higher plane and comes through us and is filtered through us. And I think it's all channeled. So these things where, and that's what this Urantia thing is. And, there's a whole cult and a whole thing built around this. But after looking into it and researching it, it really appears to me to be another one of these new age religions that's trying to, again, steer the people who have gone away from quote unquote mainstream religion. And because a lot of the stuff especially within the Urantia stuff, there's 775 pages, I think, in this thing that are all just about Jesus. I'm sorry, I'm not going to get up here and read 775 page channeled book. 775 pages of a 2,100 page book that's all about Jesus. Because, that's just me. Look, if you want to do it, that's fine. But listen, man, I've been in this stuff a long time. This ain't my first fucking rodeo. I have researched for decades and this is one of the biggest things that's hidden in the whole conspiracy research, and that is the power of the religious power structure of the world. And they are in cahoots with the CIA and with all of these other groups that we've talked about ad infinitum on these show and all these shows for years and years. And that's why. Because by hook or by crook, the New Age and all that stuff was created by these same people that run the major world religions. People can't wrap their minds around that. And it's a way that they're channeling people back towards an established quote-unquote religion or quote-unquote spirituality that is pre-decided by a third party. And I've talked about this again and again. Spirituality should never be dictated by a third party. If you need someone to tell you or instruct you or have you read something in order for you to understand the religious aspects about the spirituality they're talking about, they are trying to get you to believe something that they have an agenda to get you to believe. True religion and true spirituality isn't in a book. It isn't in a church. It isn't in a temple. It exists within each and every one of us because we are connected to the infinite consciousness. You can't put a label or a name or a dogma on that. It's like charging for air, which I'm sure they'll try to do at some point. Isn't that what they're saying recently? Oh, the Earth's losing oxygen. Yeah, the Earth's been losing oxygen since the fucking day it was created. Now they're trying to run these, scaremongering stories in the media about it. It's been losing its oxygen levels since the day it was formed. That's a fact. This is why a lot of things used to grow a lot more bigger on the planet back then, because there was a lot more oxygen. That's why animals and everything slowly shrank over time, because of the decrease in the oxygen levels. We're not running out of air, folks, but of course they're going to try to tell you that. But that's the same thing with religion, spirituality. Religion and spirituality is something you were supposed to find and journey out into the world on your own and find from the experiences that life presents to you that enable you to see the divine that exists in everything and within you. And when you have those experiences, man, you can't be convinced by a pastor or a preacher or an evangelist or a book or a religion or anything like that, or a philosophy. Because once you've experienced that real connection that any and all of us have, and any and all of us can experience at any time, again, having somebody try to come and introduce, that's what they do. They're not happy to let us find the spiritualities of our own, because that's where you find the truth. And again, we know how these people feel about the truth. So no, I'm sorry. I'm not even for $1 million am I going to get up here and read 2,100 fucking pages of the Rancho book. I'd rather fucking hang myself by my own nut hairs while slicing my ball sack open with a razor blade and pouring fucking hot lava on it. Sorry. I mean, I'm not going to do it. And I'm not going to subject my audience to being, influenced by another one of these new age theosophical religions that the religions that have been the problem all these years are now trying to get to take over so they can continue their religious hierarchy and power structure and control, just with a new face and a new name. Just like I've told you they've been doing now with Scientology. And just like they did with the Catholic Church, they allowed pedophilia and all that stuff, and the gay priests. God damn, how long has that been a running joke? But only over the past 10 years, all of a sudden they're doing something about it. It's because they want to try to make a public thing of it, so that they can later say, do a PR thing and say, oh, see, well, we got all those bad apples and bad seeds out. Now this is the new Catholic Church where we don't touch little boys' asses and the priests don't suck dick. Did you ever see my film, Secret Right Volume 1? I always try to put one little funny thing in every movie I make. And there's a part in there where this, he's obviously a queer Jesuit priest. And I've just never heard a more lispy, queer priest in my life. He's like the stereotypical, and this clip was like from like the early 80s, So I mean, proof right there if you didn't think this has been going on for decades and stuff. You hear this guy, he's like, I even back it up. And I'm like, WTF? You're like, what the fuck? What the fuck did this guy just say? Do you hear the way he said it? He says something. It's for sheep, and sheep get fed. He says it like something about sheep. Something is for sheep. You could see it in there. Anyway, that's the same thing they're doing, and that's why you've started to see doing the same thing to Christianity, and now with, the crazy Islamic terrorists. Oh, what about those Jews? Oh, they're no picnic either. They've got Zionists and stuff. See what I'm saying? See how everything is now being, when it was for years, you couldn't say anything about any, wasn't polite. Remember, people still say that, oh, it's not polite to talk about religion. Oh, fuck you, buddy. It's only not polite to talk about religion if you're brainwashed by one. That's the truth. That's what nobody wants to bring up. The people who say it's not polite to talk about religion are the people who don't want to talk about it because they don't want you to say anything that might challenge their belief system and their paradigm. It should be more than polite to talk about religion, especially when it's used as a control mechanism, used to control minds. And 99.9% of the time, that's what all religions are. They are a filter and a way to control your own connection that is possible, your own spirituality, your own spiritual connection that you can manifest and raise on your own. And I think a lot of the early religions were founded because of that. Because one person, I mean, look at all the study religions. Seems to be a theme, doesn't it? But that's really how religion began in the first place. One guy found spirituality. He really found it, overwhelmingly so. And wanted to more people to have that. Started showing other people how they could have that. It starts to spread like wildfire. And then after enough years pass, then it becomes something completely different than what it originally was. That's why all these religions were founded years and years and years after the people whose names they're founded in passed away. Buddhism, I mean, that was founded years after Gautama Buddha died. Christianity, all the rest of it. But it's a way for them to filter your own personal spirituality. Now, you can shut all that off and you can ignore it. And if you do that, it'll, for the most part, it'll shut off and ignore you as well. But when you open yourself up to it, it does it after so long, it gives you that sixth sensibility to be able to sniff out anything that is trying to lead you back into that framework of, a dogma or a rule book or, do this, but don't do that. Please, come on. Everybody instinctively knows the difference between right and wrong. And the difference between right and wrong shouldn't have anything to do with spirituality and religion, because you're mixing one thing that is of this earth and this three-dimensional earthly plane with something that isn't. That's one of the biggest problems with Christianity. The mixing of these intangible, unseeable energies that are very real, and then manipulating people into believing that the acts in the, having an impure thought about your neighbor's wife, ooh, don't do that. Acting on it's one thing. Having an impure thought, come on. Hellfire and damnation because I want to bone my neighbor's wife? Come on now. But again, you see the point. That's not saying that spirituality isn't real, but this idea of combining this manipulation and restraining your own spiritual connection because it's so bogged down in guilt and worry and this, that, and the other, and phony, morality is fine, but phony bullshit morality is what a lot of this boils down to. Anyway, I spent way more time talking about this than I was going to. The Urantia thing, again, let me read you something. Somebody actually found a question, says, what are the key differences in Urantia and Scientology? It says the answer is Urantia gives a lot of general and particular practices for the spiritual liberation of individuals, but doesn't go very much into many details of practices for ending suffering like Scientology does it. Urantia is a direct divine revelation. Scientology is not. Urantia gives a lot of revelations on God, where Scientology says They do not preach or impose a particular idea of God. Rather, they are expected to discover the truth through their own observations of their awareness advances. I mean, when you read, there's not, I mean, that's what I'm trying to tell you, folks. Just like I talked about on the most recent show, or the last show, or one of the most recent shows, with, well, it was the last show, yeah, William Bramley. That's what, that's the big secret. It's going to take people a lot of years to wrap their minds around the stuff that I'm talking about and the stuff I've gotten to now, especially with what's in the Spellcasters. It's going to take people a lot of time to wrap their minds around this. And that all of these things really have to do with the other. And this is how they're going to craft. This is why they call it New Age. This is how they're going to craft the New Age religion. I mean, hell, even Scientology's ran these commercials where they say, it's like, do you love science? Do you love religion? Here's both. They actually convince people that Scientology is a merging of science and religion. That's how they wrote people into believing. It's the farthest thing from the truth. I'm telling you that if you be Battleship Earth, it is the Lost Book of Enki. It is straight taken out. They are fucking Anunnaki. It's straight taken out right out of it. And that's what all this stuff has been. That's why all of this conspiracy and truth stuff has been pushing this stuff for years. I have inadvertently participated in it not knowing before. It's just part of the thing. But, hey, I'm not going to do it anymore now that I know what's going on. That's the truth. And the biggest problem that we have is that there's so many people out there that say they want the truth and not a lot that really do. They want the version of the truth they've led themselves to believe up to this point, but then they don't want to have to accept the fact that maybe that truth isn't true. Maybe that's another lie. Maybe that's another part of it. They don't want to have to accept that. So it's very difficult for people to wrap their minds around what I talk about, because they don't want to have to accept the fact that it's possible that they bought yet another lie and were duped yet again by something that they went to and started believing in because they were convinced it was the real truth about the lies that they've been told about, who we are, where we come from, UFOs, aliens, everything else. When people say, you don't know how far down the rabbit hole really goes, this is the definition of that. It's lies to cover lies, ladies and gentlemen. And honestly, I never wanted this role. I never wanted this role. I mean, they say that ignorance is bliss, and sometimes it is. And there is times I wish I could go back and say, God, I wish I would have never found out about this. And I would have just gone along to get along. And, I'd probably be one of the top shills, making tons of money, living in a big house. But that's not me. If I find the truth, I'm not going to ignore it. And that's really what my whole quest has been about. And that's what you have to be able to accept. Even if it makes, finding out that all your heroes and all the people that you thought were real truth tellers, and finding out that they're just BS artists like somebody on the 6 o'clock news or something, because it's such a letdown. It's when you first start finding out about this stuff, it's so depressing. You're just like, God damn it, every fucking thing's a fucking lie. I don't even know what's a fucking lie and what isn't anymore. Fuck. And you kind of, when there's just different levels of this, and everybody's at a different level of understanding at any given moment in time, We're all at a different level. I'm at a different level. You're at a different level of me. Maybe I'm higher than you. Maybe you're higher than me, whatever. But everybody goes through that, it's just like, I don't know what to believe. Everything's a fucking lie, that and the other. And then you find what you think are other like-minded people. You see other people talking about the things that you know to be true that nobody else is talking about. It's exciting. It starts to, makes you feel like you have a place to belong. Makes you feel like you're not alone. And you're like, wow, yeah, somebody else is on to what I'm on to. And it can be very intoxicating. Believe me, it is very intoxicating. I've been intoxicated by it. I've seen other people, been around other people, seen other people intoxicated by it. It happens because it's so overwhelming to come to an understanding about the way the world really is, and then look around you and look at everybody else and understand that most of them don't know that. And then you're alienated because, no one can relate to you because you're now seeing the world through a different lens. And when you bring it up, people just think you're crazy. So then when you find, or what many people perceive as the so-called truth movement or whatever, it's intoxicating because you're like, oh God, thank goodness, there are other people out there like me. There are other people out there that know about this stuff and know that they're poisoning the water and the food and the air, and knowing that we've never really truly had freedom, and it's just the illusion of freedom that's wrapped up in this monetary slavery that's based on nothing, and there's all this manipulation and black magic going on, and you find there's other people that know about it, and they've seen through the Matrix too, and you just like, oh, thank goodness, and you latch onto that. And so the thought of that, of losing that, you've already lost your connection. You lost a connection initially when you found out about this stuff, and you lost your connection to, mainstream consensus thought about the world, and then found it again by finding a community of what you perceive to be people who are talking and being interested in the same things you are. And so the idea of disconnecting and coming down from that again is traumatic. It is traumatic because you just can't bring yourself. And I went through it. That's the only reason I can talk about it, because I experienced all this myself too. I didn't sleep for 3 days when I found out about the CNP, Council for National Policy. I was fucking climbing the goddamn walls like a rat in a fucking cage for 3 days when I found out about this stuff, because it blew my fucking brains out. I felt like I was waking up all over again, and it's waking up for the first time is a traumatic experience, like birth. It really is. It's like it is a rebirth. It's like being reborn, and being born is traumatic. And I felt I was being traumatized again, because I had to realize that all these people that I thought were on the same side as I am, all of a sudden, no, they're all got connections to this secretive right-wing group, and look who they're connected to. They got people who are Rothschilds involved and all this, And right then and there, I was like, well, nobody else, because I looked at nobody else was talking about it. So I took it upon myself. That's what I was saying. I never wanted this role. I never wanted to be the guy that is having to I just wanted to gain knowledge and share that with other people. But I've been forced into this role where now I'm like one of the only few voices out there, if not the only. One of our listeners sent me an email last night, and he fucking phrased this, and I just told him this was genius. He said, keep up all the good work. Hope you're well. I'm looking forward to this new book reading as well. Oh, yeah, the one I'm not going to do now. He says, I got to say you were totally 100% right about the fact that there is no one genuine other than you doing this anymore. They're all just bullshit artists pushing their own agendas. Fucking dick sniffers, the lot of them. Keep up the good work. Fucking dick sniffers, the lot of them. I want that on a fucking shirt. I want it on a tattoo. Fucking dick sniffers, the lot of them. Every goddamn last dick sniffers. Fucking dick sniffers. You ever see that movie? You ever see that movie Baby Boy? Had Snoop in it. You ever see that movie? The dude's like fucking around on his girlfriend, and like he comes home and she's like, "You been out there fucking around?" He's like, "No, man, I ain't been fucking around." She's like, "Come on, nigga, let me smell your dick." He's like, "What?" She's like, "Come on, nigga, let me smell it. I can tell." It's like, you want to sniff his dick to see if he's been putting it in other women or not. Let's see if it smelled like coochie. Man, I'll never forget. I lost it when I saw that movie. God, that was like the funny. And then a few years later, some chicks wrote a song, "Let Me Smell Your Dick." But oh my God, I'll just never forget the first time. I was just shocked. It was, you know what I mean? It's one of those rare things in movies when you hear somebody say something like Pulp Fiction, you know, they blows the fucking dude's brains out in the car, and just stuff that people say, you know. Sometimes you hear it, you just can't believe somebody said it. But that's what I thought about when you called all the other people out there who are claiming to be putting out true fucking dick sniffers. That's all I could think about was that chick saying, "Come on, nigga, let me smell your dick. Come on, let me smell it. I can tell." Yeah, that's what they're doing. Those guys, all those fucking disinfo clowns are sniffing them to see if the old dude's been fucking around or not. And he has. So keep it up, dick sniffers. I just thought that was funny. I literally laughed out loud because it was just, you know, it was just funny. I don't know. I guess you had to have been there. I was just reading the email, and I guess I wasn't expecting that, you know, because he's like, "You're right. There's no one genuine other than you doing this anymore. They're all just bullshit artists pushing their own agenda." Fucking dick sniffers. And he put it as one word, too, not two words. He made dick sniffers into, you know, not dick sniffers where it's two, made it into one word. Dick sniffers. That's my new band name. I'm gonna start a fucking band called the Dick Sniffers. The Dick Sniffers with the odiferous twats coming to a city near you next week. All right, let's. At this point, I'm not going to get into any reading tonight. I know we'll have to do it tomorrow. We're going way too long here. Let's get into the news, and then if we don't end up having news tomorrow, which is probably a distinct possibility because, you know, who knows with all this election shit going on, we'll just do reading tomorrow if we don't end up having other stuff to talk about. But I'm sure we will. Crap. Before we get into the news, I just remember from earlier. Sorry, the show was disjointed and everything else tonight. I'm all over the place, but I got to start remembering to talk about things I tell people I'm going to talk about. The guy who asked about astral travel and astral projection and out-of-body experiences. I don't really know what I can tell you about those things. You just want me to tell you what I know about them? You know, I can do that. Okay, so out-of-body experiences and astral travel. Okay, so let's start with astral travel then first. Astral travel is one of those things where, again, if you're just believing what mainstream science and mainstream whatever tells you, you're probably going to think it's a bunch of horse pucky and not true. But actually, astral travel is very real. It's people have been doing it. If you dig back far enough and read back enough, there are stuff that you can interpret as being astral traveling for going back to the dawn of time, really. A lot of religious stuff is based on that, I think. But astral travel is very real, and this is the ability to travel outside of your body and have your spirit, while still being tethered to your physical body, travel out and be conscious about your surroundings and visit, you know, places while you're in this. It's very real. The CIA, I talk about it in the Spellcaster. The CIA and remote viewing program was very much based on the ideas of astral travel. Aleister Crowley and stuff gets into that. As far as like, I don't know honestly what you would use. I mean, it's very. I think all of us have experienced it. We just don't know. Astral travel is something that you can experience in your dreams and in your sleep sometimes, and you don't even know that that's what's going on. But as far as like what it's caused by and what it is, it's a byproduct of kind of what I was talking about earlier. The fact that we're spiritual beings that have been shackled to this dense matter, carbon-based matter. And oftentimes the stuff that we experience in our dreams and those kind of things are a way of letting us know and kind of reminding us or trying to wake us up to the fact, in a lot of cases, that, and that's really what dreams are, making you remember, hey, you're a spiritual being. You're a spiritual being that's trapped in a body. And that's with out-of-body experiences as well. It's the same kind of thing. Out-of-body experiences, though, from my understanding, are categorized more under the guise of the body flooding with DMT, dimethyltryptamine, from the pineal gland, which happens at 13 weeks of gestation of a human fetus, and then it happens at birth, and then it happens again at death. And it happens at times of high stress, and you hear stories of people fucking lifting, I just heard one the other day. Some 16-year-old girl lifts a goddamn 5-ton pickup truck off her family and saves them. That's more than just adrenaline kicking in. That's the DMT kicking in as well. And, people have stories about the white light and go the light, Carol Ann, and the white lights when they have near-death, out-of-body experiences and near-death experiences and stuff like that. Again, all those fall under the guise of you being able to have a conscious recollection of activity that the spiritual body that resides within your physical body experiences and does. That's what all those things fall into the category of. Whether it be an out-of-body experience, whether it be astral travel, it's just your brain having a remembrance and a memory of your soul, your spiritual body, that occurred outside of your body, because your spiritual body is still connected to your physical body when you're having these out-of-body experiences. So when your spiritual body enters back into and reconnects back with the physical body, your memory, your brain memory, remembers that as it would remember an experience that you had in your waking life or in a dream. It doesn't interpret that in a different way at all. So that's what a lot of experiences that people have that just seem like, you have these dreams, you have these things, you're like, oh, that was crazy. I had a dream I was flying over the fucking Brooklyn Bridge or some shit. I must be fucking whacked out. Must have smoked too much of that good shit last night. Well, maybe not. And the thing falls into that category as well. Experience with extraterrestrials, grays and stuff. These beings have the ability to be able to manipulate the spiritual body. That's why a lot of people have these recollections of alien abductions, and they under hypnosis recall stories about being on ships and stuff like that. They're not actually being physically taken up into ships. Nobody's bodies are being, when people are abducted, it's because of people can't differentiate between something that the physical body experiences and something that the spiritual body experiences. Because their only reference point for experience is what the physical body experiences, then they filter everything through that. So if a person's spiritual body is taken out of their body in sleep and then manipulated by whoever, extraterrestrials or whoever it may be, the physical body can have marks. That's why some people wake up with mystery marks. They're like, oh, I must have, they must have been operating on me or something. No, not necessarily. Because whatever they do to your spiritual body and what happens to you to that will then manifest and show itself on your physical body once it rebacks and re-enters. And that's why where this trauma comes from, and why people have these recollections of being in places on tables and whatnot, yet for all intents and purposes, they never left where they were. Because whoever or what these beings are, they're operating with technology and with an understanding of the non-material being that is inside of us, and they know how to interact and work with that. And it makes you really wonder. And I think personally that our government and the governments of the world and people on this earth right now have that technology too, and it's one of the main things that's being kept from us, and it's part of the manipulation, part of the ongoing spiritual slavery. All right, folks, we're down to crunch time here. We have very little time left. We've got about, we have until Friday at midnight. We've got to have 100% of our operating cost goal in here before, I think, Saturday's the 1st, so it's got to be before noon. So by midnight on Friday is what we're shooting for. We're going to have 100% of our operating costs in. You have until midnight Friday night to contribute $100. You'll get an archive HD membership to the audio archives, which will now include links to video content as well. We've got video links up there for the past 2 shows, for Monday's show. And then yesterday's show was only 49 minutes because the camera cut out on the video part, but the whole audio's there. We sell the lifetime memberships for $500. You can get one right now for $100. It's $80 for an archive membership a year and $10 a month. If you want to get locked in for life, regardless of price fluctuations or anything else, this is the time to do it. It's a great way to support our work. We need to reach 100% of our operating cost goal by Friday, no later than that, Friday at midnight. Highest contributor is going to get the mega prize pack, which now includes a signed Blu-ray of The Lost Secrets of Ancient America Volume 1. You can see all the details of the prize packs and all that stuff on our Facebook pages, which you can find at facebook.com/the Global Reality Radio Network. You can just type in the Global Reality Radio Network into Facebook, and you can also type in our other Facebook page. We've got 4 different pages. We've got the Global Reality Radio Network Facebook page. We have the Josh Reeves, filmmaker, radio host, and explorer page. We've got the Let There Be Rocks page, and we've got the Lost Secrets of Ancient America page. So, the Global Reality page and the Josh Reeves Filmmaker page for sure have information on the prize packs and all that stuff. This is the best time to get locked in, folks, because instead of paying $80 for a year and then having to come back in a year and pay another $80, you can pay $100 now. You also get a free download, any download you want from the download shop as well. For a $100 contribution, help us reach 100% of our goal. If you come in at like $400 or $500, at this point, you're probably going to win the grand prize. And that sucker's worth $1,500 plus. We'll probably won't offer a prize pack. We're not going to be able to offer these prize packs forever because, number one, that's my side business, and I can't just keep giving it all away. I haven't had money to even buy any more inventory. So, this prize pack is, you get an actual piece of the rock wall in this, and an amazing tanzanite. Every stone in this package. You can see the video I put up on YouTube as well. Anyway. We don't want to get down to crunch time here, folks, and be on red alert again and have to be scrambling. Please help us out. It took everything we had to get into this studio, and it took all the time this month just to get us up and running now. We're getting there. We are there. We're doing video shows now. We got more stuff on the way, but we've got to get the operating costs covered so we can make it to the next month and really have a full month where we can start doing all the things now that we want to do with our new setup, since it took us this long to get everything going. So we've got to have your help. We can't falter now, and go to theglobalreality.com, folks, and make it happen. We'll see you next time for the show. You guys have a great one. Take care.